Hi everyone, Azriel Knight here, and welcome to the second half of a Fortnight of Film Aftershow, where I discuss my thoughts on the episodes and I address your comments. I'm going to do a couple other things this episode too. I'm going to give you my top 5 favorite films for the marathon, and I'm going to give you my top 10 favorite photos for the marathon. And I'm also going to tell you about the future of this channel moving forward, something I know that a lot of you guys are very interested in hearing about. But the first thing that I want to do is acknowledge your support. In the last video I released on the Fujifilm Neopan 400, I mentioned that YouTube's new algorithm has basically been invalidating all of my ad revenue down to 0, basically, for the end of October and the beginning of November. And it's been incredibly frustrating because it's saying that my views are up by 63%, but it's saying that my revenue's down by 70 to 80%. And even discussing the matter with Google themselves in a live chat, they said, nope, everything's fine, everything looks fine. But it's actually a pretty widespread problem for lower and middle tier YouTubers such as myself. There's even a hashtag going around right now, hashtag YouTube wage theft. Honestly, it's probably a temporary thing, but whenever they implement a new algorithm, it's usually guys like us that get the short end of the stick, if you know what I mean. But I want to acknowledge some people who came forward with incredibly generous donations. And first, I want to acknowledge my most recent PayPal donations. I want to thank Jade, Jean, Bryce, and Gabriel for your generous donations. So appreciated. Even a few bucks goes a long way. I know a couple of you said, I know this isn't much, but I hope it helps. Trust me, it helps. $3 is better than no bucks, which is basically what YouTube's giving me right now. So appreciated. The other thing that I want to acknowledge is the massive increase on my Patreon. I want to take a moment to acknowledge my latest patrons. It has been incredible seeing the growth on my Patreon account right now. So I want to thank Medium M Films. I want to thank Richard Stroffolino, Jamie Maldonado. Thank you, Jamie. Eric Ardendahl. Thank you, Eric. Zestoy. Thank you, Zestoy. Philip Foster. Thank you, Philip. Jamista. Thank you, Jamista. And Andrew Fontana. Thank you, Andrew. And these are the people that have just signed up in the last few days. If you want to sign up yourself at the $5 level, you'll get your name in the credits and early access to my videos, which usually translates to a day or two. But with all that being said, let's get to your comments. Now, in the first part, I read your comments from episodes 1 to 9, and in this part, I will read your comments from episodes 10 to 17. So in episode 10, I shot Kodak XX film for the first time ever. It's a cinema film, and there's this movie called The Lighthouse that I watched just like a week after with Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, and that was shot on XX. So it was really cool to be able to shoot it and then see a whole movie shot with it and see a lot of the same style that I ended up with my photos in the movie. Very cool film, very hard to shoot. And here are some of the comments that I got from that. First comment comes from Mr. Rom92Da. I would try D96 Developer. It's particularly low contrast and intended for black and white movie films, so they have some extra wiggle room to work with when they're grading their prints to get the exact look they want. It also might do well in XTAL. I think, however, I've only devved XX and D76 and found the combination too grainy for my taste. That's what I used, was D76. On a fun note, I do have a bit of unexposed Super XX from the early 1940s that's held up pretty well. Nitrate base and everything. It's the predecessor to XX that the emulsion was based on. I shot a roll of it earlier this year, just before lockdown. I also still have a roll of Super X in my freezer that dates back to the 30s. That's the predecessor to Super XX. And Tri-X is, of course, the evolution of all of these. So many X's, which begs the question, just what is an X anyway? An X is somebody you block on Facebook. I don't know. Thank you for the comment, Mr. Rom. He wasn't the only one who recommended D96. I also had, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name, but it's up here, He says you need to try this in D96 Developer. A film can really change based on the developer, as you may or may not know. I developed all of my black and white films in D76 stock, so 1+0, basically the solution itself, and I didn't add any extra water before developing. I just poured it straight in, mostly for sake of ease. Randall Stewart says, my first and only introduction to Super XX was in my one and only photo class, high school in 1961. The teacher bought it in bulk rolls and loaded 35mm cartridges for the class because it was cheap. I think we paid 25 or 50 cents a roll for it. How times change. I've not used it since, and I'm afraid in high school we weren't sophisticated enough to make film quality judgments. We were into the fastest films, 400 speed Tri-X, and the fastest lenses. That's changed as well. Yeah, it's interesting how trends in film have definitely changed. I know a lot of old timers think that using an RB67 for street photography is absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, tastes have changed, styles have changed, and and of course our priorities. I'm kind of curious to see what'll happen in the next 10 years. Are we still going to all be drooling over Cinestill and Portra, or what? And what is the new generation of film photographers going to be obsessing over? That's what I'm curious about. Poniatowski, sorry, says, you should take your favorite black and white frames from this series and darkroom print them to show the difference between digital manipulation and analog manipulation. Do it as another Kickstarter. I'd contribute to that one. I really appreciate that comment. I don't think I would need to do a Kickstarter to do a video like that, but you guys let me know in the comments if that's something you want to see, if you want to see me take a few frames that I've scanned and altered digitally and see how it ends up looking in the darkroom. It's not going to be much of a problem for me because I do plan on printing some of my black and whites in the darkroom, not only to fulfill the Kickstart backers, but to fulfill my patrons for this month as well. In episode 11, I shoot Fujifilm Acros 2 medium format. First time shooting Acros 2 and first time shooting it in medium format. A couple years back, I shot Acros in 35mm. I instantly fell in love with it. I said, this is going to be my main film. This is going to be my main film, I said. And then they immediately discontinued it. And it was very frustrating. Acros 2 is just as amazing. And I've seen the comparisons. I think there's a bit of difference in the highlights, but they're virtually the same. It's really nice when a film company recognizes that there's a demand for something as well, and they actually bring it back. So, and a lot of other people can relate to this. The only thing that I don't like about it is the price. Stephen Nichols says, hi Azriel, loving the series and got really excited about this one due to my problems with developing Acros. Looks like all of my problems are solved. Well, almost. I've heard of the pre-washing mentioned in the comments and adding extra washing at the end. I have also heard it been suggested that the negatives are held between heavy books for a period to eliminate curling. Of course, in this project, you wouldn't be able to do that. Looking forward to the next one. Yeah, I'm trying to remember now if I had curling problems. It's so hard to think about individual episodes. I think I do remember it being a little bit curly, but nothing where I thought, oh man, I've got to put this in between some books. If I were to do it, I wouldn't just use books. I would put a couple of dumbbells on top. Not on the top of the film itself. I would put books on top, and then I would put the weights on that and see how that goes. Moranaka25 says, Acros is my all-time favorite, but you rarely see it, or I don't anyway, on social media. It's all HP5 Plus and Tri-X. Glad to see Acros 2 can carry on the legacy. Looks stunning as ever. Yeah, I find that people get fixated on a film and they see the attention that it gets on social media, particularly things like Instagram and subreddits like the analog subreddit. You'll see a lot of HP5, but even more Cinestill and Portra. That stuff just prints karma. It just prints likes, and and follows and all that other social media garble. So I think a lot of it is not necessarily that people are losing their minds over it. It's that they want the same social media attention as the other people are getting. So, a little at column A, a little at column B, but I don't think it's entirely because people actually like the film. Eric Dan suggests just let it sit in plain water for 20 to 30 minutes before or after washing. That will get rid of all the purple dye. That is something I'm going to try next time I shoot acros or anything else with a purple dye. Thank you, Eric. KZ0 says T-Max and acros are both tabular grain films, which is an interesting relation to the pink washing water. As far as I understand, T-grain films are harder on the fixer. Fixer gets exhausted faster, and it's especially important to have a proper stop bath, since the stop helps the fixer keep its strength somewhat. Underfixed film stays pinkish, so maybe that has something to do with it. Just speculation, though. Also, every single one of the highlights today is just pure gold, and I think they are my favorite shots of the series so far. Thank you very much for your comment, KZ. I don't know if the pinkness itself is underfixing, but to say that it won't affect your image at all if you scan it or bring it into the darkroom is probably not accurate. It probably has some impact on your final image, but as the last comment suggested, put it in the water for 20 to 30 minutes and just let it sit there and let all that dye come out. If that works, that'll be fantastic. But I don't know if it's a fixing thing. Like you said, it's speculation, so I don't want to jump all over you and say, no, that's not it, because you might be right. But I think it's more of a washing issue, and I would be curious to see what longer washing times do to that. Moving on to episode 12. I shot Kodak Vision 3 800T. This was my second go at ECN2 color development. It went way better than the first. Still not perfect, but it definitely went better. And I further challenged myself by doing some night photography. And while I didn't think that the images were anywhere near my best of the series, a lot of you really enjoyed them. And I think that's fine. I think it's a pleasant surprise when my expectations aren't necessarily met, but yours are exceeded. And that happens a lot as an artist. So my first suggestion to you is, if you're unsure about something, put it out there. Put it out there into the Twitterverse or the Instagram. Put it out on your Instagram. See what happens. See if other people agree or disagree. I feel a lot of the time I've got this whole bank of photos, spread throughout my Lightroom catalog that I kind of ho-hum over, that I'm sure people would lose their minds over. And it'd be really nice if I could just have 100 pair of eyes look at every single one of my photos so I would know. But that's part of the struggle in choosing your photos, is what do you take with you and what do you leave behind? Verdo007 says, I would have probably done some test shots with digital first and then added time to compensate for the reciprocity failure. Yeah, well, hindsight's 2020, I guess. In hindsight, I probably would have brought my mirrorless camera with me, just as like you mentioned right here, to test things out, not only for exposure, but the feel of it. Because if you've done night photography before, then there is a much broader range on what could be considered a proper exposure. There is a lot more room, I believe, left to interpretation. You could have the lights, you could have the street lights just barely shining on the street and everything else go black. Or you can have them super, super bright and almost blowing everything out. And some people would still consider that a proper exposure. I think that's one of the reasons why I love night photography, is because there is a lot more latitude on what could be considered a proper exposure, compared to the daytime. If you're 2 stops off in the middle of the day, it's kind of noticeable. The sky looks muggy or it's blown out, but at nighttime, you got way more to work with. Stu Hazeman says, love the running the red light shot. Strange how empty the streets were. My local city would probably still be busy at 4 a.m. and I'd never be confident enough to shoot there. Well done. Calgary, Alberta is absolutely dead after 6 or 7 o'clock at night, especially downtown. Everything closes. It wasn't that way 20 years ago. They used to have something called Electric Avenue, and it was just a string of bars, and it was a party city. At least that part of town was a party place. And then I think they passed some bylaw where they couldn't open up any new bars. So as each bar closed, it had to be replaced with something else. And eventually the whole Electric Avenue just faded away. And yeah, I don't know. There isn't any 24-hour coffee shops. There is a truck stop diner called the Blackfoot Truck Stop Diner. And that is the only 24-hour restaurant that I'm aware of. And then other than that, Walmarts are open till 11, and that's about it. There is nothing to do in this town anymore, and it's really frustrating because I would love to be able to do night photography where it's actually busy. And not right now during a pandemic. Right now, right now it was working in my favor that the whole city was dead. But on the same note, though, when you're out there in the middle of the night and it's dark, and you do see somebody, you know that they don't really have too many good reasons why they could be out, and your instincts start to kick in. You're like, okay, well, maybe it's time to move on. But yeah, this city is dead at night, and it's been that way for, I don't know, a while, at least a decade. Eat Frog says, there is no such thing as Vision 3 800T, it is 500T. In C41, you get a small speed bump, but in ECN2, it is an ISO 500 film that likes overexposure. Yeah, I just bought the film from the Film Experience camera store in Longview, Alberta, and it was re-rolled film and labeled as 800T. So, like I said, my first time using the film, I don't know the ins and outs, and I did hear this from a couple other people. Honestly, I don't know why it would be labeled as 800T at all then, if it's just 500T. But that's good to know. Thank you very much. Maybe I'll try it at 500 ISO next time. Yeah, Davel Joe 193 says, I'm pretty sure Kodak doesn't have an 800T stock anymore. And what you were shooting was actually Kodak Vision 3 500T, which is a 500 ISO film, and would explain why your photos looked underexposed. They probably got the 800 ISO figure from Cinestill, given that their Cinestill 800T is the same as 500T film stock. Cinestill says that them removing the remjet backing somehow allows more potential for capturing light, but from the results I've seen, it looks like underexposed film. I think the underexposure was due to my lack of proper exposure that night. If you saw me, I was bracketing a lot, shooting at a lot of different exposures because I don't have a lot of experience shooting film at night. If you look back to my old Days of Night episodes from a few years ago, I was actually shooting digital. I wasn't hiding it either. You can go back and see, and I mentioned that I'm using a Canon 5D Mark II or whatever, but that was my choice for night photography, was to take a shot, see how it looked, and then add more time or take away time. Like a couple of you also mentioned reciprocity failure. Like, oh, what did you do for reciprocity failure? I'm like, I totally forgot to use reciprocity failure. So, yeah, it was definitely a learning process. I'd love to shoot more at night with higher ISO films too, because I like shooting handheld. I don't like dragging a tripod around. But yeah, 3200, maybe even 6400 for sure. I would definitely also like to figure out the reciprocity failure on those potential films as well. So in episode 13, I used Instax square film with my brand new SQ6 that I bought on Amazon as a result of a suggestion by a viewer. And I really, really loved this stuff. I love being able to watch the film develop in front of my eyes. I think the color is absolutely amazing. And its only downside is its size. It's a little small. Mike Allen says, I don't have an Instax camera, but I do print iPhone shots on an Instax SP3 printer, and I've been very happy with the results. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people experimenting with Instax in a lot of different ways, and I am really looking forward to trying some of that. For example, this is my Graflex pacemaker, and I've been experimenting putting Instax Mini in it using these 2x3 negative holders. They fit a Mini almost perfectly. And here is what I've done so far. So this is one of my first attempts. I tried smoothing out the chemicals with the center column of a tank, and that didn't really work out. And they didn't quite fit in, and light leaked a little bit. So what I actually ended up doing was sanding down this portion here where it was a little thick on the one end, and then using a Sharpie and making it black again. And once I did that, I was able to fit a Mini completely in. And then here's my best result so far. That is pretty darn sharp, I would have to say. Look at that. So yeah, that's my best result so far. And at some point, I'm going to do a video on Instax Mini in my speed graphic. What's it called? I think I haven't even shot regular film on this thing yet. It was a donation from my old photography mentor, Neil Spears. And yeah, it's a Graflix. It's a speed graphic pacemaker. So it's not one of the large format ones. It's one of the medium format ones. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing some outdoor shots with that Mini Instax film for sure. So, episode 14. Which is the day that shall not be named. But for the purposes of this video, yeah, we're gonna have to name it. It was by far my worst day. And I know that you guys get a lot from watching me fail, but I gotta tell you, it's not easy. It's not easy, even though you know that it's gonna be useful for people. Failing and then having to film it, right? Like failing and just showing the photos maybe to a classroom might be easy, I don't know. But having to film it and put it online and then like not fake being positive, but look for the positivity in it. It's incredibly challenging. It's more challenging than the film shooting itself, at least for me. And yeah, without getting into too much detail, it was one of my worst days in a long time. Some incredible anxiety that day. But you guys came forward. You guys gave me a lot of encouraging comments. Let's take a look at some of them. George Evans says, I took those exact same photos last weekend. Despite how terrible I was feeling when I read that, I laughed. Mark Bodie says, feel your frustration, mate, but you'll come back on the stretch days revitalized. What do you think went wrong? I know now that it was the developer. And I know that because the guy that donated the film, Al, went and shot another roll from the exact same brick of film. And he developed it using C41 at room temperature, which is the way to do it if you don't have the actual Soviet developer. And the photos came out looking pretty amazing. The grain looks kind of weird. It looks kind of wormy, for lack of a better term, or like cracked glass. But the color is pretty good considering everything else. He shot it at ISO 6, and yeah, it looks good. So, and the reason why I think it's the developer is because, like, if it was the camera, I would have had the edge coding or edge text show up on the film, and nothing showed up on the film. I think one of the other comments said, "Oh, at least it fixed properly," and that's true. It did fix properly, but I suspect with almost certainty that it was the developer. Because there were 7 chemicals in all that had to be mixed to make the developer. And one of them was a vial of liquid, and the cap had been breached, for lack of a better term. I can't think of what word to use, but it was open. And there was some crystallization. So whatever it was had exhausted. I was really asking for it though. Looking back now, I'm like, wow, like a film that is super old and not used anymore, and I'm mixing like this developing kit. I mean, it's hard because it was a gift. It was a different person who donated the Orwo 5168 developing kit. And you don't say no to gifts. If somebody wants to send me something, you don't say no to it because it's it takes a lot of generosity and a lot of consideration for somebody to mail me something, and I want to make sure that I show my appreciation for that. And the way I show that is by using the thing that I was gifted. So I think if I had my time back, though, I probably would have made it its own episode after the marathon. But what can you do? Moving on to episode 15, I shot something way more safe. I shot some Fujifilm Neopan double S or SS. I want to say double S. But yeah, it was a 35 millimeter roll of film. It had been frozen since fresh, so I was able to shoot it at box speed. And the negatives came out great. They look beautiful. Michael DeRose says, I hope you consider doing this again, obviously in the distant future. So relaxing to watch in all this modern insanity. I will definitely do another film marathon. You can quote me on this. There will be a Fortnight of Film Season 2. But there's only so much I can ask from you guys. So I figure it's going to be like 6 months to a year before I do it again. I will do it during a different time of the year for sure. Probably summer to fall of 2021 will be the next one. I don't know if it'll just be another 14 to 17 rolls of film or whatever, but I will try and find out a way to mix it up a bit. I think that 17 days, I was really running on empty. Like I was up to here on my energy levels and here being totally done. So I think what'll happen is that I'll commit to 14 days. And if I reach stretch goals, I will go to more exotic places because I won't be limited. Well, hopefully I won't be restricted in any sense of the word. But what I mean is I won't have to worry about a dump of snow happening while I'm out shooting. So yeah, if I reach stretch goals, maybe I'll take it on the road. Maybe I'll go on and do a whole road trip for like the first week and then do a bunch of the editing when I come back or something like that. Who knows? But I will figure out a way to up my game a bit. Maybe I'll do 14 different cameras and 14 different films at the same time. Who knows? Let me know what you think I should do in the comments. And let me know when you think I should do it too. SFD Man says, I would really like to see HP5 at 3200, maybe in a future video. Well, I think I showed a few of my recent HP5 at 3200 photos in a recent video. And actually, SFD Man, I don't know if you're watching this, but you're the one who inspired me to go out and do some night photography with HP5 at 3200. So thank you for that. Just a quick and dirty review here right now. I would say I don't like it as much as T-Max 3200. I find that there isn't as much forgiveness and definitely not as much shadow detail. Sometimes you're just getting highlights and then straight to black. And that can look cool, but it's not what I always want. And I do want more control. So I think I'll be shooting more T-Max P3200. But at some point, yeah, I'll do an episode on HP5 at 3200 for sure. So in episode 16, I shot Kodak T-Max P3200 and I did some night photography. And I went out with my buddy Jacob, and I think, no, I don't think, I called him Jake. Yeah, I called him Jake instead of Jacob. And he watched the episode, he's like, bro. And I'm like, oh man. So I told him I would apologize on video for calling him by the wrong name. But at that point, my brain was like it was in a blender and someone hit frappe. It was absolutely done. I couldn't think straight. I didn't know what day it was. It was so taxing. And I knew his name was Jacob. I'd called him Jacob before. We talk on Instagram. I see it. It says Jacob Ma. So that was embarrassing because I did it twice, and I did it when he was just out of earshot when I was shooting that church with the steam in the background. Josh and I got some shots of the fog, and what I did is I walked over to here, and I couldn't even think of the word steam. I kept calling it fog or smoke or whatever it was, and someone's like, it's steam, and I'm like, steam, of course. So yeah, pretty frustrating there. Stefan Dahlberg says, wait, you do every wash with distilled, not just the final flow? Seems excessive. I really like the Misty Church. Moody. Yeah, I tend to do everything in distilled water from start to finish if I can. And when I mix my chemicals initially, I will put a 4-liter jug of distilled water into the sous vide, and I will bring it up to the temperature and then mix the developer with the distilled water. I figure Calgary's got some very hard water. If I'm adding just regular tap water into the mix, then I'm using the distilled water for washing the fixer off, and I'm using it for washing the tap water off. So it's doing double duty all of a sudden. And, you know, maybe it's excessive, but man, everything in film photography is excessive. That's my personal opinion on that. Robin Wakefield says, you should totally print that foggy church photo in the darkroom. It's amazing. Thank you, Robin. And yes, spoiler alert for this month's Patreon mail out and for my Kickstarters, that is likely to be the print, is that one. And I'm going to talk more about that steamy church in a little bit here. CDL0 says, for evening and night photography, I underexpose film, otherwise it turns night into day. An issue that I experienced. The overall picture should be dark and the shadows should be inky black with no detail whatsoever. I asked, how much do you underexpose by? And he said, probably I underexpose by a stop or two, making some judgment about the overall brightness after a few meter readings, depending on how I feel. So for a typical scene in a town or city lit by street lamps, it might work out to about 1/15 of a second at f1.8 on 200 ISO film such as Kodak Gold 200. The negative looks very thin, but simply scan with the same settings as for a well-exposed daytime picture, and don't try to recover any shadow detail. Let the shadows be black as the unexposed borders around the frame. It works for color reversal film as well. Think of as being the opposite of a snow scene where you would overexpose by a stop or two, otherwise you will get gray snow. Nobody likes gray snow. Thanks for the suggestion. I'm definitely going to try that for sure. S. Shungul. I'm sorry. I'm so bad at this. Hi, Azriel, man. What a ride this was. And it is hard to believe that it will be over soon. Watching your FortKnight episodes from day 0, I am not sure what my days will be like when this is over. At the very least, they will be a good amount less entertaining, less informative, and filled with less smile, surprise, astonishment, wonder, and curiosity. So before the last episode will be available, but presumably after you have finished it, let me thank you for your efforts, your insights, your honest opinions, and well, for doing things just the way you do them. It was great fun watching all this, accompanying you through highs and lows, seeing the relief that the roll after the one from the day that shall not be named had negatives was one of my personal highlights, because being encouraged to also give ECN2 a try. Thank you for this great entertainment. As I do YouTube videos myself, I can absolutely understand what would make you follow down this rabbit hole of a vlog marathon. I guess I can, but never ever would I dare to do it. So doing it this a second time after knowing and experienced how much work that means and how much emotional stress can grow from it, for me is out of this world. I hope you found and experienced everything you were hoping for. So again, thank you. It was a pleasure. And by the way, just keep going on for some months now that you got used to it. I got a lot of fantastic comments like this, but I just wanted to include one to show that I do really appreciate these comments. They keep me going. They keep me going. It just hits me right in the cockles of my heart. Is that the right term? I don't know. But it makes me feel warm and fuzzy. And my wife loves hearing them too. She gets all warm and fuzzy when she sees stuff like this. So thank you so much. The funny thing is that when it was over, like I felt like I was exhausted after day 17. And when it was over, I was kind of bummed out for a week. It's like you're on the go, you're just moving and you're doing all these things, and you know exactly what you need to do every hour of every day. And you're getting all this positive feedback, and then it just sort of like drops off. Not to zero, of course, because I've been putting out videos since, and the channel I feel is really revitalized. It's like I exceeded my expectations in every sense of the word. I got more on my Kickstarter campaign than I thought I would. I've been getting regular donations through the mail, through PayPal, through Patreon. The comments and interaction with the videos has just been absolutely astounding. Like, I can't thank you guys enough. I don't know how I can express my gratitude through this video feed. But my light died. One sec. But yeah, I don't know if my gratitude truly translates through the video feed, but this channel has changed my life. This channel has changed how I've been a photographer in every sense of the word, and it's given my life meaning in a way that I didn't think was possible. Thank you so much. Really means a lot. It really means a lot. So episode 17 was my final day, and for my final day, I decided I wanted to go to the Calgary Tower. And if the weather was better, I would have done a trip. I would have done like an overnight trip in a hotel somewhere and made it a big thing. But that just wasn't in the cards, and I'm really glad I didn't try and do it anyway, because like the snow would have come while I was out in the middle of it, and yeah, I'm happy I didn't try and do it that way. The Calgary Tower, though not the greatest choice for a season finale, it sort of wrapped things up because it gave me a view of many of the places that I had shot during the course of a fortnight of film, and having that snow come in but not being restricted by the weather, i.e. being indoors, was also a treat. I think if I had my time back, though, I would have shot 35mm instead of 120. I felt restricted by only 10 frames. JR Worthy 42 says, I've been holding back from commenting until the entire series was complete. First, I have to say that you did a great job all around. Kudos to you. Secondly, the aspect thing that I enjoyed the most is the fact that you included your struggles as they occurred. So many times, especially on social media, we tend to show only our best and successful attempts with anything and everything we do. Sharing the mishaps along the way provides a certain level of authenticity, which is rare these days. Can't wait to see what other challenges you come up with to push yourself in the future. I am pleased to say that I have zero regrets making my pledge on Kickstarter. Now get some rest and have a snack. You deserve them both. Yeah, I definitely had a snack, that's for sure. I could have eaten so much better during a fortnight of film, but I didn't. Yeah, thank you so much, JR. Really appreciate that. I think the authenticity comes from that I would feel like a liar if I left those crucial parts out. Like when that day 14, the day that shall not be named, when that happened, for one, I was super anxious about having to just show you guys nothing, and how was I going to make a video where I had no highlights at the end, knowing that that was the only choice for me, that, you know, I couldn't just go on to the next day and pretend like it was day 14, for example. There's no way I could have done something like that. That would have been spitting in the face of all the support that I had. I really owed it to you to show you guys just how bad I screwed up. And it hurts, and I don't like it, but I know that it helps you guys too, and that makes me feel a little better. Alec McLaughlin says, never saw your channel before, but really appreciate this series as I just started shooting film again after many years. Thanks and hope for more fun series in the future. Thanks, Alec. I really like when I hear people shooting film again after they haven't shot it in a while as a result of watching my videos. Little King STR says, wanted to binge watch all 18 episodes before my comment. This has been a wonderful fortnight. Watching you grow as a photographer and seeing your process, it's been a voyage for all of us. I was one of those who replied for another 30 days back when you asked for channel guidance. And did you deliver? I am happy to have been a Kickstarter contributor and look forward to helping out with future fortnights. Looking forward to your thoughts, highlights, and blooper vid. Yeah, not a lot of bloopers. I did a few bloopers near the end of the one of the early episodes, but mostly I just stammer, stutter, choose the wrong words, and then or stare blankly into the camera, not knowing what to say next. So a lot of it's just cutting out the fat in order to be more concise. But thank you for your kind words. Really appreciate it. So that concludes the comments section. Now let's talk about my 5 favorite films from the marathon series. You've heard me talk about the film a lot in my comments and stuff, so I'm just going to touch on each a little bit. So at number 5 is Instax Square. Instax Square made me fall in love with Fujifilm Instax all over again. I found the Instax wide a little bit too big and the camera's a little too clunky. I don't mind Instax Mini, especially now that I've put it through my pacemaker and found a new love for it in that. But having the Polaroid-shaped film version was super cool, even if it was a little smaller. At number 4 is Ilford Delta 400, and this is specifically in medium format. I picked up some Delta 400 medium format because the store that I was buying it from was all out of HP5, and I figured that was a good second choice. And I was really happy with the results. It's just a nice overall punchy 400 speed film, and I will definitely be shooting with it again. I've got some HP5 in the fridge now, and I wanted to shoot that in medium format and get a sense of, you know, what I can do with that. But I might end up switching to Delta 400 as my main medium format black and white film. At number 3 is Velvia 100. I once shot Velvia 50 and I didn't like it, but I do like the 100. And it was the first day I shot a fortnight of film, I shot Velvia 100. And I was like, wow, this is going to be a hard act to follow because these photos are amazing. How am I going to produce photos this amazing every single day? And yeah, still some of my best shots are on day 1. At number 2 is Acros 2, medium format. I love Acros, and if it wasn't for the price, it would be my main medium format black and white film. And then at number 1, and this might surprise some of you if you've been watching me for a while, but it's Kodak Portra 160. This year, I have found a new love for color film, and I've shot quite a bit of Portra 400 and 160, and 160 is my choice for 35 and medium format color. It is amazing. It's so beautiful just looking at the colors, especially in medium format, but 35 millimeter as well. So those are my top 5 favorite films for a fortnight of film, and probably just in general. Like, if I had to put a bonus one and say my favorite expired film, I would say Neopan. You saw me shoot some Neopan SS during a fortnight of film, and then in the last episode you saw me shoot Neopan 400 expired, and it was great. It's a beautiful black and white film. Moving on to the second last portion of this after show, I'm going to tell you about my top 10 photos for a fortnight of film. My 10 favorite photos from every single day. At number 10 is this shot from day 3. It's the Vision 3 250D, and it was shot at the Dragon City Mall, I believe, in Chinatown. Just a beautiful shot. I love this shot because I experimented a bit more than I normally do. I just got right into these lights, and I sort of framed that orange light at the end there. And it's sort of abstract. You don't really know what's going on. And yeah, I think mostly I love this shot for the color. At number 9 is from day 11, and this is a shot with Acros 2, and this is in an alleyway of sorts. And the thing that I love about this photo is that it's sort of abstract architecture. I guess if I had to choose a genre that I shoot the most, it would probably be called abstract architecture. But they had these cross lights, like these little light bulbs hanging from up above, and I just like the way it looked when it was blurred out, plus the shadows on both the buildings in the background. At number 8 would be another abstract architecture shot. The thing that I like about this is the reflection at the bottom sort of carries on that pillar look that you see, and then if you notice closely, there is somebody walking through that area there. That's called the plus 15. And yeah, just like I love the triangles and the sweeping, how everything's kind of sweeping across and sticking out everywhere, and you have to take a minute to figure out what's what. At number 7 is from the last day, day 17, with medium format Tri-X, and this is a shot of the Center Street Bridge. I finally got the shot of the Center Street Bridge that I was hoping for. Who would have thought that I'd have to be more than a kilometer away from it? And I just love how the buildings on either side frame it, and the haze of the snow is creating this washed out look at the top, and it's just a beautiful overall shot. I don't know what else to say about that. Very Metropolis-like, very Fritz Lang. At number 6 is the Neopan SS, and this is shot in Chinatown. Now, one of the things I was a little disappointed in was when you look at this on the YouTube episode, you might not notice that there's this bird flying in between two buildings in the upper right side, and I really think that this completes the photo somehow. I love how it just sweeps upward. Again, very Metropolis-like to me. That's where a lot of my influence comes from, is that movie. But this is a photo that I would love to be able to blow up 11 by 14 or bigger if I had the means. I currently don't, unfortunately, but if I did, I would try this one first. I also love how you can see the bow tower in the reflection over here. I actually just noticed that while prepping this for this video. At number 5 is this bicycle planter shot on Ektachrome 100+. It makes me a little sad because, as I mentioned in the last Aftershow video, this bike was stolen, and there's a sign there now saying that they are looking for it and they're hoping somebody will have information on it. And it's really disappointing that, this is why we can't have nice things like this. You can even see that it's chained up. If you look, it's wrapped around a tree and all that. But yeah, very unfortunate that this was stolen. I guess that it almost makes this photo that much more precious because you can't just go grab another frame of this now. At number 4 was the Velvia 100 shot, taken right on day 1. This is the very first photo I took for the marathon. And, there was this fog rolling across the road and through a field, and the sun was just coming up. And I wasn't sure how this was going to turn out because Velvia film's really hard to shoot with. And it just came out amazing. I mean, there's really nothing in the shot. There's like some grass, a fence, some fog, and then some trees in the background. But the way the sky cascades, the way the color changes, the way the fog picks up the color, the way the shadows drop off. At number 3, a photo you might not expect to be one of my favorites, but this was shot on Kodak XX. And It really illustrates, I think, the amazing nature of double X when the elements are right and the exposure is right. So the first thing that catches me about this is the incredible detail in the flowers, the way the snow is melting on them. There is just something about the way this was exposed that makes this look like it was drawn with a graphite pencil or something. It's so sharp, so cool looking. And not only that, but I think the ice melting on the flowers is incredibly beautiful. If I was better with words, I probably would have been a writer and not a photographer. But you either get it or you don't when you look at it. But there's just something that I can't put into words that makes this photo absolutely beautiful. I believe this might be another photo that I print in the darkroom pretty soon. At number 2 is our model Danielle, shot on Kodak Portra 160. And this was one of my favorite poses from it. This is one of the shots where I don't mind that the background is showing. And her hair is absolutely stunning. I love her expression. I love how her eyelashes pop. And I love how her outfit just sort of drops into the darkness. Just an amazing photo overall. This photo makes me want to do portraits way more. And it's just a matter of, well, first off, it's a matter of a pandemic ending. But it's also a matter of like building relationships with models. I definitely want to work with Danielle again. And I'm waiting for some good weather to break through so we can do that. And the number 1 shot, I'm sure some of you already know, shot on day 16 on T-Max P3200, is this steam and church shot. I cannot tell you how ecstatic I was when I scanned this and I saw the way it looked. This looks like something out of like, I don't know, 1940s film noir, like something that you would see in a old classic horror movie. All the elements are just absolutely amazing. I cannot wait to get into the darkroom. Like, we almost didn't take this shot too. Like, we were across the road, Jacob and I, and I can't remember which one of us noticed, but I'm like, well, do you want to go over there and take a look? And he was like, oh, I'm like, yeah, let's just pop over there and take a look. And this was one of my last shots. This is frame 30 of 36. So this is like almost the end of it for me and almost the end of the night. And I think I could go back a dozen times and not capture it as well as I did here. And it's not like I spent a lot of time lining things up. I just sort of dug myself into the corner. And I just waited for a lot of the steam to pass over the frame, and I took my shot. And I'm so happy with the results. I cannot wait to see how this looks on darkroom print. If there's a photo that stuck out for you that I didn't mention here, definitely let me know in the comments. I'd be curious to know your thoughts. So here's the part you've all been waiting for. At least I hope so. If you've made it this far, I know that I've been very eager to tell you about this, and it's not really a secret, but at least some of it's not a secret, and that's the future of this channel. What happens now? When I did first impressions before a fortnight of film on like a camera or a film, it was very rigid. I scripted it very specifically. I went out and I didn't film myself shooting, and I made these videos that were technically better because things were well thought out and all that kind of stuff. But looking back now, I don't feel like there's as much personality in them. They're not bad. They're still enjoyable to watch. I think you should go watch them if you haven't, like if you're new to the channel. But you'll find that there's a very specific style involved, that I did things very rigidly, and I actually spoke from a teleprompter, and yeah, I was very by the book. But I don't think in the end that that's what you guys like. I think what you guys like is seeing the knee-jerk reaction. If you haven't figured it out already, the format that I used for a FortKnight will be one that I use going forward. So at the beginning, I'll talk about, a previous episode, and then I'll introduce the film or camera that I'm going to be reviewing, and then I'll show you guys a little bit of the camera or film. Like I'll either do the unboxing or I'll show you the camera itself and, what some of the buttons do and all that kind of stuff. But very first impressions, very shooting from the hip, and way more vlog style and completely unscripted. Sometimes I will say things over and over again in order to be more concise. If I think of a better way to say it, I do a few takes and make sure that things are boiled down to the necessities to keep the flow and keep you interested. But they are from here to the camera. They're not written down and then recited. The thing that I want to make sure that you guys know is that from now on, I'm going to be producing 2 episodes every single week. It's either going to be 2 cameras or 2 films, or a camera and a film, and that is going to be for the foreseeable future. I've got enough films alone to shoot another, 40 episodes, I would say right now, and I've got enough cameras to do a dozen more. And I'm only going to be getting more films and cameras in the near future. And will it last forever? Well, there's only so many films and only so many cameras that I can shoot with. So at some point, I'm going to have to rework the channel and come up with a new format, whatever that might be. But at least, I would say for the next year, it's going to be 2 episodes a week, 1 on a film, 1 on a camera, and I am really, really looking forward to it. I'm super excited about shooting all these different kinds of films that I got donated to me. I feel like a lot of the pressure to make a perfect video, perfectly scripted and all that kind of stuff has been taken off of me. You guys like just seeing me fiddle fart around. You like seeing me just do my thing, and you like seeing my initial reactions. And I think that without a script, I come across more genuine, I have to admit. And I've gotten more comfortable in front of the camera, having to do this like 17 days in a row and then doing it twice a week like I have been. I've gotten more comfortable just shooting the breeze and just showing you guys a bit more of myself each time. And I hope you agree. I hope you guys are excited to hear that. So, and the final thing that I want to mention is that I'm going to be doing an exclusive series for my patrons at the $7 level. The old exclusive series was a show and tell for my podcast, but I haven't been doing my podcast in a while. And I'm not saying that I'll never do a podcast again. I wasn't shooting much last winter, and this winter I plan to shoot quite a bit. And I think I'll interview people when it's relevant. If you don't know what show and tell was, is I would include an extra segment just for my patrons at the $7 level or above, where they would bring something that they had photo related with an interesting story behind it. But this new exclusive series is going to be called, it's a great name, get ready for it, Azriel's Variety Show. Clever title, I know. It took me so long to come up with it. But the segments will include like my Lightroom organizing process. Like I've got almost 100,000 Lightroom photos, and the whole catalog is completely unorganized. I figured I'll take you along for the journey of working through those. I think that's going to start with reading a book or 2 on Lightroom. Now, I've been using Lightroom since like version 2 or version 3, I think. I've been using it for a long time, like almost 10 years now, since it was brand spanking new. But I haven't learned a lot of new things in that time. So it might start out with like, I'll learn, you learn. So that's one of the ideas in the variety show. Another one is thrift store hunting and eBay hunting. So if I'm looking for a new camera or a new lens, I'll take you along for the journey of searching for a specific item on eBay or just driving around and looking for stuff at the thrift store. Find a new shiny, don't find a new shiny. It's an episode, and I'll take you along for the journey, how I look for stuff, how I determine whether or not to take it, and, inspecting it on the spot, that sort of thing. Also, my film cataloging process. All my shot film is kind of loose right now. It's sort of just in binders in semi-chronological order, and there's a lot of stuff to go through. There's some stuff that I'm just going to straight up throw in the garbage, and I figure I'd take you along for that process as well. So if you're interested, if that sounds like something that you want to see, then all you got to do is join my Patreon at the $7 level, and not only will you get that exclusive series, but you'll also get your name in the credits and early access to all of my other videos a day or two early. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and sign up. But yeah, guys, that wraps up the after show. I know that if you were watching this, you were probably there throughout my journey. I hope that this after show did it justice, that you've had all your questions answered. At some point, I might do another reflection, like a year reflection, but I think honestly, I'll just be doing another FortKnight. Who knows what that'll bring? I definitely want to make it more challenging. I definitely want to leave the city more, so I'm probably going to do it in the summertime. And I don't know if I mentioned this already, I probably did, but let me know in the comments when you would like to see season 2. And of course, as you know, the only way that I can do a FortKnight of film is through a successful Kickstarter campaign. So you have to keep that in mind when you make your answer in the comments section. But yeah, it's after 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm quickly losing my voice, so I'm going to wrap this up here. Again, thank you so much for your support, not only with a FortKnight of film, but after. Every one of you who donated on my PayPal link or became my patron in the last month. Seriously, the Patreon is doing so well. I'm going to spend some time and really make those perks amazing for you, and I hope that you appreciate it. And until next time, stay classic.